Hello. So in John 5, we start off with the story about the man at the pool of Bethesda. Now, that pool, the pool of Bethesda, back in the day, was a place of hope for invalids. Some believe that it was actually a warm springs that was connected to a geyser. So that stirring of the water or the bubbling was from the geyser, and that some have a scientific explanation for this healing that happened there, because we know that warm springs usually have some healing properties. But whatever had happened, or whether this is true or not, the man and other invalids were at that pool because they believed that it could heal them. And he had given up hope, more or less, because he had been there for 38 years. So when Jesus asked him what he wanted or what he could do for him, all he came up with were excuses. And I thought that was just a very powerful message. Being a certain way for 38 years gives you an illusion, or just helps, or even cements into your mind that that is who you are, or that is how you will be. So him being by that pool, I don't think he really believed that he could be healed. But Jesus gave him hope, the hope that he sought. Once healed, he went straight to the temple to worship. Now, I wondered what the Pharisees were on about with his mat. Like, apparently him holding his mat was a problem. But then I realized that it violated their Sabbath law. So we know that the Pharisees had amended the laws of Moses by putting a fence around it. A fence in the sense that they put some extra measures around the law to make sure that people didn't break them. And so the man wasn't allowed to carry his mat, because carrying a mat was work. The same way Jesus wasn't allowed to heal him, because Jesus healing him, according to the Pharisees, was work, and that was forbidden on the Sabbath day. Now, Jesus wasn't allowed to heal him because it was considered work, and the Pharisees wanted him dead for this action. Now, these Pharisees were very guilty of adding their man-made rules to God's work. And Jesus was steady calling them out on it. This they didn't like. They kept accusing him of breaking the law. But Jesus was never guilty of breaking the law. Let's get that straight, because sometimes or somehow, if you read it often enough, it might sound like Jesus was just baiting them by breaking their laws just to get them angry. But he wasn't breaking laws. What he was breaking was their man-made rules surrounding the laws, the things that they did to make the laws extreme, intense, and almost impossible to keep. Now, Jesus let the Pharisees know that even though they considered themselves experts of the laws, they didn't know the law. They didn't recognize him as the one who the Old Testament pointed to. And if they really knew the law, they would know, he tried to understand. They didn't recognize him as the one the Old Testament scriptures were pointing to, and he tried to show or demonstrate his authority as the Son of God. And in verse 23, he said, "Anyone who doesn't honor the Son is certainly not honoring the Father who sent him." Now, knowing the scriptures without knowing Jesus is empty, it's invalid, it's purposeless. It doesn't make sense. Now, and keeping the law was impossible without Jesus, and the law was like a mirror. So the law in those days was like a mirror that showed the imperfections, shows all the ways that one was falling short, but it didn't have the power to take away those imperfections or take away those shortcomings. Jesus was the only one that had that ability, and the Pharisees in that day did not recognize this. Now, what did I learn about God in this chapter? Jesus didn't just heal the man at the pool of Bethesda. He spoke to his heart by giving him the hope that he sought, and the hope that he had sought for most of his life. Can you just imagine that after he was healed, the first thing that he did was to go to the temple to worship? Now, what's interesting is that he didn't know who healed him. He didn't know Jesus as, he just knew him as the man that healed him. And he went straight to the temple. And he might not have known that Jesus was the Son of God. He didn't know that he was he was the incarnate Christ. But after being healed, he went straight to go and worship God, or the God that he knew in the way that he knew. In verse 15, Jesus found him and encouraged him to keep away from sin so that he doesn't end up worse than before. And this just shows, from these things, it shows man's heart. When he was healed, he knew he was attributing it to God without really recognizing the situation. And Jesus sought him out to encourage him to keep his healing. How amazing was that? Well, thank you very much for joining me today and joining me to share my lessons. I'd love to hear what lessons or what stood out for you. And I look forward to sharing tomorrow's lessons with you as well. Have a wonderful day. God bless you. Bye.